wonder of nature, baby!
You sure this is the right place to recruit for a militia?
God save King George!
I think we came to the right place.
Son of a bitch! Damn it, you can't, can't I? I'm a colonel. Nasty little cuss.
Now I become Death, the eater of burger.
We reenactors, we pride ourselves on being completely authentic. Ronnie carved his own buttons out of black rubber. And Artie, his underwear, made out of horsehair.
Hi, man.
What are you doing?
I'm drinking wine and eating cheese and catching some rays, you know.
What's happening?
Well, the tank's broken and they're trying to fix it.
Then why the hell aren't you up there helping them?
Oh, man. I only ride them. I don't know what makes them work.
We will rise against the British and the Indians and the French.
No. Yeah? No, not the French.
Not the French. Sorry. Yes, the French.
Hello, Mr. Watanabe Generico. Would you like to buy this conveniently cheap slave?
When in Rome, do as the Romans do. I guess I have no choice but to buy a slave.
No! You can't barge into my mansion just to burn it down and free my slave harem!
Face the judgment of the Lord, slaver!
Oh, I'm not even on stage. Well, we're on stage now. Hello, everybody. Hello. We have survived the arduous journeys. Be sure to leave me know in the comments section if you can hear us. The audio is probably not going to be great. We had a little bit of a boo-boo on today's travels. I forgot a few items, but I did make sure to bring the label microphone. So be sure to comment if you can at least hear us. If it's not great, it's probably not going to be, but let us know at the very least that you can hear us and that we sound like we're speaking English.
Yeah, since I think both of us only know English, so if we're speaking in other languages, there might be some sort of weird interference.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, Tim Allen has commented in. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for Tim Allen showing us. Yes, cheers, Tim. Thank you for all those tuning in from A Drink of Crazy's Gilded, because this was a very last minute stream. We weren't sure if we're going to do this or not, so I didn't want to promote it, and then I don't want to promote something, and then we get here and we're dead tired and we don't want to do anything.
Yeah, we caught our second wind after the lecture.
Yeah,
this evening.
we're here. We should have enough energy for a good solid half hour. So I am Spencer, aka Readout Productions, and for the first time ever, we've actually have Humble Collector on stream. You've appeared in many of my videos, but not on stream.
Yeah, you've been in many of my collection views and things. And yeah, no, I'm excited to be here live on stream.
Yeah, no, it's finally happened. We've finally done it. The next phase in Uncut history. One day we will have guests in the studio regularly. But for now, we can only do it portably. Welcome to our portable studio. This is totally not some hotel room in an undisclosed location.
Yeah, definitely. You have no idea where this is.
Yeah, no, we're totally not in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania or anything. No,
definitely not.
No. I mean,
I would be consuming meat if we had meat.
You'd be consuming meat if we had meat?
Yeah, the comment there from Tim.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, if you're going to do military history, you need to consume meat.
You're right.
Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. But we got Smithwick's.
We got Smithwick's. We do have Smithwick's. And
it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we completely threw us together at the last minute. It's like there is a computer chair and this sofa here, this chair.
Yeah. It has no back support at all.
For the record, we're both about the same height. We're not.
Yeah, no, I'm actually not like
actually
4 feet
slightly taller than me. But yeah, no. So yeah, you have an interesting chair.
Yeah, no, because it's if you lean too far back, the back like caves in, and then your spine does a weird like S kind of shape.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm in the corner here, also, so I'm actually in frame. But
yep. So we're trying our best to maintain frame. So yeah, so it's been a while since I've been able to get on the road. It's been a few months. Those months aren't over yet, but I've taken a respite before finals. I needed it.
Yep.
I needed it after
calm before the storm.
Yeah, October was a mess for me.
Yeah. How many straight days did you work?
Almost the whole month. I forget the exact number. It was like 27. I want to say it was 27.
That's a lot of days.
It was a lot of days. Yes, a lot of days. But we're here, and it's great. So as you guys probably are aware, my end goal is with this channel to be able to do this more regularly, going on the road, being able to go out to historic sites such as Gettysburg's battlefields, but I'd like to go to other places as well. We're still in the preliminary plans of that because coming on these trips, costs money.
Yep.
Costs money, costs also a lot of booze as well.
Yeah, now staying and drink is important.
For the record, Readout Productions, a humble collector, do not endorse drinking and driving. Don't do that. That's why
That's a good PSA.
Yeah, we're not endorsing.
We're texting and driving. We saw that in an ad earlier, so don't do that either.
Yeah, don't do
really
that.
When you're driving, all you should be doing is driving.
No. So eventually one day, and I have plans next year. We've been talking about a few new trips.
Oh yeah.
So more on that later. But it's been nice finally being able to actually do a stream while being on the road. I know some of you guys have asked for a car stream, and the reason I haven't done a car stream, simply put, I haven't gone on the road. And actually, this time we're not taking my car. We've Humble Collector is my chauffeur.
Yep, I'm chauffeuring this trip. I've been through the Circle of Hell 3 times today.
We'll explain what that is later.
Yeah, if you've never been here, you don't know.
Well, let's explain it now.
So in the center of Gettysburg, there is a roundabout, and it was designed by Satan himself in an attempt to fool mortals to their death. You see, it's wide enough that it's wider than one lane, but it's not quite wide enough to be 2 lanes. So it ends up being this circus show where you've got cars that are like over a little bit and then over this way a little bit. It's in the center of town, so these 4 main roads converge. It's awful. I hate it. I don't like driving through it. I've been through it 3 times today. Thankfully, none of them were particularly bad. So, yeah. But we had somebody watching out for us, I guess. But
yeah, we made it through. Tim Allen. No, you consume when you consume when at where you want to go makes the meat taste better. I can't argue with that logic.
I also can't argue with that logic.
I can't argue with that logic.
The sad thing is, I got a bottle of mead sitting in the fridge at home. I should have grabbed that on my way out.
Wow. You left that.
I did.
We could have had meat on.
It's in the basement fridge, so I keep forgetting it's down there because I keep forgetting there is a fridge in my basement. Yeah,
excuses.
I know.
Excuses. Keep drinking that Smithwick's. So we ended up choosing Veterans Day weekend to come out and tour the battlefield. Now, normal people, when they come to Gettysburg, they're out here to talk about Robert E. Lee, George Meade, talk about the battle that occurred here in 1863. But you must understand that we are not normal people. We're not even normal historians.
Not even close. No.
So we're out here Veterans Day weekend trying to document the locations of the 1922 U.S. Marine maneuvers that occurred here between late June, early July of 1922.
Which really has not been done on YouTube, from my understanding.
No, at least not to the extent that we're trying to do it.
Yeah.
The American Battlefield Trust has brought it up in passing. Matt Atkinson has brought up in passing on a number of his park ranger tours here. I've talked about these maneuvers and the other uses of the Gettysburg battlefield, aside from being, well, a battlefield.
Yeah.
Just a short little list of how the battlefield's been used since 1863. It's hosted numerous veterans reunions. It has been the site of mustering for infantry regiments during the First World War. It was in 1918 the first tank training grounds the United States ever had. In 1922, the Marines came out here of 5,000 men. And then in the 1940s, during the Second World War, they actually had a POW camp on the battlefield. German prisoners of war have held here. And they had a few other small things. I think they had like a quartermaster's office here and a PSYOPs thing. I heard.
Yeah, you were telling me about that earlier.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it, but I remember reading about that. So yeah, a lot has been done on the battlefield before it was returned to its 1863 appearance, which we're appreciative of, but we're nerds and we think it's pretty cool that the Marines were out here.
Oh yeah, because not only were they here for a huge like period reenactment where they actually dressed up in kind of Confederate Union uniforms, they were actually fighting, reenacting Pickett's Charge mainly. But they also, on the final day of the reenactment, did a 20th century reinterpretation of Pickett's Charge. So instead of having your men lined up and marching across the field, we're talking they had air cover, there were tanks, there were machine guns. It's super cool, and it's something that really doesn't get talked about at all. No. So it was.
So that's, you can expect that in the near future from Redoubt Productions. There is going to be a retracing history, and we're going to go in depth about the history of the Marine maneuver. To be honest, I'd love to tell you about them all right now, but we're a little bit winded.
Yeah.
That'll all be in the video. That'll all be done in editing and post. But that's why we're out here tonight.
I think one point though that we can make is that even if you read about a battle and you see pictures of it, until you've actually been there and walked it, it's hard to really imagine.
Yeah.
Because we were out where the camp was supposed to be today. Like, it looks flat in all the aerial photographs that you see, and then you get out to the field, you realize it's not flat.
No.
Yeah, no, it's actually there's bends in the ground, and we had a hard time determining exactly where certain things were, as you'll see in the video that'll be coming out.
Yeah. And Tim Allen has commented in, if you can make it, take the trip to West Point. A piece of the Hudson River chain crosses the river, is still anchored at the shoreline. Yes, Tim Allen has requested me to make a video about the famous chain that went across the Hudson River that the Patriots set up.
I'm not super familiar with this.
So yeah, during the American Revolution, what ended up happening was they initially set up what they called essentially phrasing across the Hudson River. They said phrasing across the Hudson River. And it was a mixture of like logs. It was a mixture of like all sorts of things and jam the riverway. So British boats couldn't just sail up and sever New England from the rest of the colonies.
Okay. Yeah.
So in 1777, during the Saratoga campaign, actually a British army did advance up the river. They were trying to link up with Burgoyne at Saratoga. They were able to get through the first chain, but they weren't able to go much farther. They were able to get through the chain, but by that point, they had spent so much time trying to capture the Patriot forts. Burgoyne had already been captured by Benedict Arnold. I mean, Horatio Gates' army. I'm sorry. I know Horatio Gates gets all the credit for Saratoga. Boy, I want to go to Saratoga badly.
You'll get up there eventually.
One day. But the Patriot Army were able to take the British down up at Saratoga. The victories that taking down the chain were irrelevant. And then in the following year, 1778, they set up a literal chain, like an iron chain across the Hudson River, and the British could not get through it after that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a literal chain that exists.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never been to West Point. That'd be cool.
Oh no, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Stony Brook. I think they have a small battlefield up there. They had the battlefield preserved at Stony Brook when they were able to basically land the troops there and basically went up there with bayonets only and took the whole British garrison. Oh no, it's a fascinating history up there. I'd be happy to go up there. Interestingly enough, where we're from, Western Pennsylvania. They filmed a movie just a couple years ago set at West Point in the 1830s. You may have heard of it. The Pale Blue Eyes starred Christian Bale, Patrick Bateman himself.
Yep.
Yeah, he was in that movie.
Needs to return some videotapes.
Yeah, but interestingly, they didn't film it at all at West Point. They filmed it in Pennsylvania. A lot of it was like in Pittsburgh. I think some of it was filmed at Westminster College, which is actually more the east side of the state. They actually lugged the cannons from the Fort Ligonier Museum. I remember this. They lugged the cannons to be at Westminster College. So they had like period cannons on location.
That's cool.
The Compass Inn Museum also, they filmed a few sequences there. So yeah, apparently the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania looked like the New York wilderness of the 1700s and early 1800s.
It seems like Western PA just looked like generic Europe. Because it seems like there's a lot of people that have come here and been like, yes, this reminds me of home. Because you have the Highlanders that settled here, after the French Indian War.
Well, not here.
Back home,
over there.
that direction.
Somewhere.
But also, there's an apocryphal statement that, like, apparently it looks a little bit like Bavaria. Like, I heard a rumor once that allegedly, if the Germans were to conquer America, that they were going to put like a Berghoff type retreat in Western
I've
PA.
heard about this.
I don't know what the source for that is, so take that with a large grain of salt.
Take that as you will.
But I mean, also the German American Boone headquarters was pretty close to,
I don't know if the Boone main headquarters were near Laurel.
But the regional headquarters was.
Yeah, they were set up in a farmhouse, sending messages, and then apparently the United States military set up their own headquarters.
They were in the farm next door, like, hey.
Yeah, no, I'm not even making this one up.
Yeah.
Crystal clear. I think my brain's crystal clear. And Tim Allen responds with, Washington had gun emplacements at what is now the town of Garrison, West Point, and on Constitution Island that were trained on the ships that got caught in the chains. Yeah, no, it was a beefy operation.
Yeah.
I think they even had like a battery in the waterway, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how.
Like on a built-up island or something?
Almost, basically, yeah. Nobody was coming up the Hudson.
Yeah, chains have a fascinating history when it comes to like protecting ports and harbors and river mouths and stuff. I mean, the same things were used during World War I, World War II.
Oh, you mean like the Great Gates of Azulon and Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yes, exactly like that.
On fire, and they're like, oh, the water tribe can't get through this. Joke's on you. We invented submarines.
He who invents the submarine wins.
The crewmates of the H.L. Hundley wouldn't agree with that.
Look, but before the Hundley, there was the Turtle.
That didn't succeed.
But we won.
We didn't win with the Turtle.
No, but we won the war.
They couldn't drill through the bottom of the British warships. Does it matter? Okay. See, this is what
you get style points.
Okay, I hope you realize this is the type of stream you guys are getting.
Yeah, it's just going to be...
We're almost 20 minutes in. We've just been rambling. We haven't even really got to the crux.
I mean, that's what I expected this to be.
Yeah, that's why Tim Allen really wants me to talk. And I am planning to do one because Hudson Chain I've heard about before. And it is an interesting, we don't think about like we always think about, things can't be literal. No, it's a literal chain.
Yeah.
It blocked the Hudson River and it was very good at its job.
Yeah.
So yeah, he lives not far from where the foundry was that actually made the materials for the chain. Now, this is labeled the Armistice Day stream, and again, it kind of ended up as a happy little accident. We were planning to come out to Gettysburg to walk the Marine maneuvers regardless. Sometime this fall, it just happened that we chose Veterans Day to do this, and we wanted to hit a few other things. We actually spent a good bit of the day at Fort Loudon. They were doing their Black Boys Rebellion demonstration, which there is a retracing history video all about Fort Loudon. It's a shorter video, but it's I'm really proud of the editing on that one. So be sure to go back to see that to discover the Black Boys Rebellion. But it ended up that we chose of all days, November 11th.
Yes.
To spend this. And even crazier, yesterday was November 10th, which would have been, I believe that's the Marine Corps birthday.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Yes. Yes, the kind of made up holiday. Yeah. So while I go and grab a beer, Humble Collector is going to talk all about World War One.
Oh gosh, World War One.
You just have to talk about the event we attended.
Yes. This evening, when we were coming out here, Readout and found out there was going to be a bit of a lecture at the Adam County Historical Society regarding a book that was recently written called The Serpents of War. I'll borrow your copy there. Yeah, Serpents of War, an American officer's story of World War I combat and captivity. So the two editors, Stephen Trout and Ian Isherwood, came out and kind of gave a little bit of talk about the book. And basically, this officer who was part of the 79th Infantry Division, post-war, sometime probably in like the early 1920s, he wrote a 5-volume memoir that was never published about his experiences in World War I. And so they actually had these at the college here in Gettysburg and edited it down into this book. And what really caught my eye when Readout was telling me about it was that the officer, Harry Dravo Parkin, was actually a POW at the very end of the war. He got captured, November 7th?
No, November 4th.
November 4th. Yeah, within like 2 weeks of the war ending, he'd been captured. And so he actually got like this behind the curtain view of like what was happening in Germany right before the end of the war, which is super cool. It's something that I knew basically nothing about. And the talk was great. They did a great job explaining their process of going through the memoir, a little bit of background of Harry Parkin, who actually was from Pittsburgh, which is pretty cool. He used to live in Shadyside, which is our neck of the woods. And yeah, basically prior to World War I, he was involved in the preparedness which I never heard of.
I never heard of this.
Committee
Apparently in like 1916, before the United States officially entered the First World War, a bunch of upper middle class and high class Americans basically were starting to form officer battalions, like private officer battalions. They were like going up to New York and getting trained at Plattsburgh on how to be an officer in the military, just, in case the United States may go into the Great War.
Yeah.
Oh, funny how that worked out.
Yeah, no, and it ended up, being beneficial training.
Yeah.
He ended up being an officer in the 1st Battalion of the 316th Infantry Regiment. And yeah, they fought in the Meuse Argonne, got horrible casualties there.
Yeah, they spent like 6 regular days. Their first time on the front lines was 6 consecutive days of being in the fight.
Yeah, in a very heavily defended German position that the French have been trying to take for years at this point. So they really got thrown right in the meat grinder. I think they were saying that at the end of those 6 days, only a quarter of the 316th Infantry Regiment was left standing.
Yeah.
Which is awful casualty levels. And then, so they went back behind the lines, had some R&R, got reorganized, and they ended up back on the trench line early November and were ordered to take Hill 376 or something like that.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
378?
378, something like that. But they were to take this hill. They go up there, they seize the hill, and basically the Germans come in and just pound on them. And they're holding for a while, and eventually the Germans just overwhelm them. And Harry Parkin is wounded. He gets captured, picked up by German stretcher bearers, and hauled into captivity. Now, little did he know at the time he was going to be a captive for about a week before the armistice was officially signed and the war ended. But yeah, no, it's just a really cool story that I'd never heard before. Post-war, he wrote his memoirs, ended up moving to California, died in 1946, if I remember correctly. But after his death, his wife donated his collection of World War I memoirs that he purchased in the years after the war to the Gettysburg College.
Yes.
Yeah, Gettysburg
College.
College.
The college's library.
Yeah. So they have all these memoirs that he had bought post-war, and then also his manuscript, which ended up becoming this book. And I'm very much looking forward to reading it. They read a few excerpts at the talk, and it was really powerful stuff.
They said originally this memoir was like 5 volumes. It was like 200,000 words.
Yeah. And they said part of it was that he kind of repeated himself in a lot of places. They say they think he had a plan, and then he kind of lost track of certain things he already talked about. But also he went on these long diatribes they cut out. And hopefully, but we asked them to email us the copy of like the total like transcribed 5-volume set, because there's apparently like a 50-page diatribe he goes on about machine guns that the different nations were using and how they compare to each other, how they're currently being deployed and how they should be deployed differently. That sounds absolutely fascinating. There's also like a 12-page rant that he goes on comparing wool versus leather putties, which most people would not care about. But if you're a really big nerd, that's the kind of stuff you just love to see. So hopefully we'll get the chance to read that. I mean,
I'm not going to comment too long, but I really enjoyed Trout and Ursherwood's presentation. I was very excited once I heard what the subject matter was about because did you mention that Parkin actually ended up being a prisoner of war? You did mention it.
I did mention, yeah.
It was only there for about a week. He was prisoner of war, but nevertheless, he provides a rare insight that we get an American perspective as being a prisoner of war, but being held by the Germans. And he also gives like a very rare perspective of what the last week of the German Empire was like before the end of World War One.
Yeah, and
which is utter chaos, by the way.
That was the fascinating thing when Readout first told me about this. Is I've read far too many books about World War One and World War Two, and I've read so many different books about the Army Air Corps during the Second World War, and a lot of those books spend at least a few chapters talking about the Stalag Luft camps and all the air crew that were POWs in these camps. So I have a pretty good understanding of the POW situation during World War II, at least in Europe. I knew nothing. And granted, they didn't really touch on too much in the talk, so I'm looking forward to reading about it here. But I'm very curious how his experience as a POW for that last week of World War I was compared to what it was in World War II, for sure.
Tim Allen's dropping in to mention about the nickname of the Devil Dogs coming from the Battle of Belleau Wood.
Yeah, and the Battle of Belleau Wood's interesting because I know a little bit of background here. So there was a book. It's probably one of my favorite memoirs from World War I that I've read, and it's called "And They Thought We Wouldn't Fight." And it's by a war correspondent who was with the Marines, Belleau Wood. I can't remember his name. I apologize. Awful with names. But basically, what had happened was he was attached to the Marines, Belleau Wood, because there was a huge army contingent that was fighting in Belleau Wood as well. It wasn't just the Marines. And basically, he got severely wounded during the fighting. He got shot like 3 times. Ended up losing one of his eyes. And he wired one last dispatch talking about him fighting alongside, or being with these Marines while they were fighting. And basically, he was a fairly well-respected correspondent, and they thought he was going to die. So they kind of let this last dispatch get through, right? Well, because of this dispatch, the American public tied the fighting at Belleau Wood and the eventual victory there to the Marines. So because of that, the Marine Corps ended up getting solidified as like the force that was at Belleau Wood, even though it was actually a larger contingent of the U.S. Army that was also there, which allegedly is one of the reasons why Marines didn't see much service in Europe during the Second World War. Apparently, there was like some interbranch rivalry stuff that was going on, but I'm not too sure how true any of that is. Sorry, that was a huge side-off rant. But
No, it's worth it. It's worth the price of admission.
Yep. Oh, yeah, the use of shotguns is a war crime in the trenches. Yeah, they did. Yeah, it's interesting because the whole thing with the shotguns is in Europe, the shotgun's a hunting weapon. And while that's a hunting, tool, really. And it was used for that here in the U.S. too, but we have a much different culture around shotguns for use in actual fighting situations. I mean, they feature pretty frequently in Westerns, of course. You always had the shotgun rider that was on the stagecoach.
Yeah.
So unlike Europe, where it was strictly a hunting weapon, in the U.S., we have a long history of using them for personal defense, actually using them in fighting situations. So it made perfect sense to bring them to World War I. And the Germans did not like that. I think the use kind of gets overblown because, per my understanding, they weren't used nearly as often as media kind of tends to show them as being. The other issue was that the paper shells they used at the time, it turns out when you have paper shells and you're sitting in muddy water for like a week, not a good combo.
No, not a good plan.
Yeah, late in the war, and by late, I mean like the last few months of the war, I know they had like full-length brass shells they were using that were actually more effective because they didn't degrade because they're paper. But I'm not too certain how much they actually saw combat with those.
No, it's a good observation.
Mm-hmm.
No, but final things on the Serpents of War. I'm very excited to read the book.
Yeah, and the title's really interesting.
I'm presuming it's available on Amazon.
I would assume it's available online. We didn't check.
I'm going to do that check while you keep talking.
But yeah, the Serpents of War. Somebody asked a great question about why the book was called Serpents of War. And apparently in Parkin's writing, he refers to the machine guns as like the snakes of the battlefield, vipers spitting venom.
And to confirm, yes, it is available right now on Amazon. It is $39.95 for the hardcover, which is what we ended up with. I don't think it's in any. I think it is just hardcover right now. Yep. So if you are interested in reading Captain Parkin's memoirs from the First World War, a rare insight into an American soldier being in captivity by the Germans at the end of the conflict, This is currently available on Amazon. It's $39.95. We highly recommend it. Both of the offers were fantastic to talk with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we were there probably for like 2 hours. Like, the presentation itself was only about for like 45 minutes, but we're all like kept asking questions. Us, the whole crowd. Like, we're just like, please tell us more.
It was some great questions too. And it was a lot of stuff like, somebody had asked the question about his opinion on like West Point officers versus like the volunteer officers, and like, because apparently Parkett was very opinionated and very, very blunt about his opinion about a lot of the officers he served with in his memoir.
You always hear about people saying how the volunteer officers of the volunteer officers of the American Civil War, they didn't like the West Point officers. Yeah, that carried over into the 20th century.
Pretty much, yeah.
And arguably it still is around in the 21st century.
Well, and they also told the anecdote that apparently Parkin, when he first got to his unit, he asked which of the men there had previous military experience. And the 3 NCOs that stepped forward, he immediately got rid of. He's like, yeah, you guys know how to game the system. I don't want you guys as NCOs, which, yeah, one way to do things, I guess.
And Tim Howland's chiming in here. According to what I learned, the Marines were sent to fight the Japanese because the General Chiefs of Staff believed they were better suited to fight in island hopping campaigns than the Army, which is, yes.
Very much true.
Yes. I mean, remember, the Marines are set up to be the soldiers defending Navy. That's what the Marine is originally intended to be.
Yeah.
Soldiers that are defending the Navy's, defending I guess you want to say small land masses and large bodies of water.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say throughout a good chunk of this country's history, I think the military was kind of confused what to actually do with the Marine Corps for a long time. Which is one of the reasons, like, why we were here for like the 22 Marine Corps maneuver, is there have been multiple times throughout the Marine Corps' history that people have been like, we should just dissolve these guys. Like, we don't actually need them. And as the son of a U.S. Marine, I can tell you the Marines vehemently disagree with that statement. And so, yeah, the Marine Corps maneuvers at Gettysburg and at other Civil War battlegrounds throughout the 20s and early 30s, I believe, they were all part of this big PR campaign to basically say, hey, the Marine Corps is great and we still need these guys. And it worked. The Corps is still around today. So
yeah, it's still here today.
And of course, they're fighting during World War II in the island hopping campaign.
The United States definitely has a very different treatment of its Marines than most other countries. Where most other countries just view the Marines as, they're the folks that go off and they hold coastal fortifications or territories.
Or there's a handful of them on every ship to deal with any,
which is what the Marines are historically meant to be, just out there to protect, usually sometimes with the British Navy, the Marines kind of defaulted into being just basically the personal guard of the captain.
Yeah.
To keep, from certain mutinies from happening. Cough.
Well, when you press gang a good chunk of your sailors, you got to worry about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But in the United States, after their performance in the First World War, where they basically were allowed to go full ham in the trenches.
Yeah.
That kind of birthed the mentality that the Marine Corps is supposed to be this elite form of the military. Like, they took pride into it. It's like, this is our one opportunity to succeed.
100%, yeah.
And as a result of that, the Marine Corps became highly decorated during the First World War. I believe it was because of the fact that at the time, the Marines, they were the only body of troops that had like trained soldiers and trained officers when we went to the First World War. They were really the only part of the military that's like, everybody's trained, everybody's ready to go. Because they've been doing a lot of small activity between the American Civil War and the First World War, most notably in Spanish-American War. Then to get into the Banana Wars when we started getting involved with Haiti and Panama and all Central America. So there was a lot of these small deployments of the Marines during the Teddy Roosevelt administration, Taft's administration, and Wilson's administration. So they were the only ones that had combat experience. The troops are ready, the officers are ready. So the Marines were the first guys sent over to go over to Europe during the First World War, and they proved their worth as a result. And then the United States government wanted to cut them because they're like, well, we really don't need it. We don't really want to be involved in world affairs after what happened with World War I. We want to go back to being isolationist, to which their commanding officers went, to heck with that. We want to keep our jobs. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then they had all these maneuvers here at Gettysburg, and the President Harding was like, "Oh, okay, I think I'm going to keep you guys around." Yeah, you're definitely wowing the public, and the public wants you to stay around, so you're going to get to keep around. And if you're wondering why we're wearing these very flimsy campaign hats,
these are the cheapest campaign hats.
There's a reason for it. Yeah.
It's felt. There is no liner here.
There is no liner, only felt.
Yep.
Oh, and Fu Man Blue pops in very briefly. Respect to your pop.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually come not from a Marine, but I'm coming down from. My father was he spent a few years being involved in engineering in the Navy. And when I mean engineering, I mean he literally ran the engines, not like he planned out the ships or anything.
Yeah.
He literally ran the engines. And then he got himself involved with the National Guard for the next 20-some years. I think he also worked 1 year for the Air Force. He wasn't with them, but he worked as a guard right after 9/11. He loves the Midway.
Yep.
He loves USS Midway.
I mean, it's the Midway.
Yeah, well, there's one problem.
What's that problem?
It's in California. It's
Oh,
in
yeah,
San Diego.
yeah, it's kind of far.
Sorry, Californians, if you tune in.
Unfortunately,
I love you if you're watching. But SoCal is.
There's not a lot of good warships to visit in PA, unfortunately.
Sadly not. We got the Delaware River and SoCal. I don't think us military nerds would fit well with SoCal.
Not really. I've been to California once. I don't really intend on going back anytime soon.
Some people spend their vacations on the beaches, and some people spend their vacation at Gettysburg.
Yeah, this is. I feel like beaches are overrated, if I'm being honest with you.
It really is.
Because my family keeps talking about doing like one last trip, before, because my grandparents are getting kind of old now, and mobility's a bit less than it's been previously. And they keep talking about oh, we should go on one more trip, and all my family's like, yeah, let's do a Caribbean cruise. And I'm like, can't we go to Europe? There's
I've never done.
Yeah, it would be cool. There's cool stuff to see. There's history. And
okay, we won't go to Verdun. Can we just go to Leeds too?
How about Normandy?
Britain? Can we go see Hastings?
Yeah, seriously. There's so much good history in England, and and with the river cruises, I mean, you can go anywhere in Europe and be everywhere. Yeah, do not go on a cruise. I agree. Well, I will say I went on a river cruise once. Did Budapest to Nuremberg, and I thoroughly enjoyed that because it was cool. Spent a day in Vienna. Spent half of that day at the Habsburg Armory Museum in Vienna. It was a great time. I loved it. I'd love to go back. But
both my parents' fathers were in the Army in World War II, and only my dad's father fought overseas with the 14th Armored Division.
Ooh, 14th Armored.
And he also, both these next two are both from Tim Allen. And then my grandfather's cousin, Albert Ireland, fought in both World War II and the Korean War.
Yeah, Korea is interesting because you have a lot of World War II vets that end up either they were still in the military because they went career and ended up in Korea, or they re-enlisted to go to Korea. Actually, from our neck of the woods, Gabby Gabreski.
Yes.
Yeah, the ace from Iron City. He actually was an ace in World War II and became an ace in Korea as well. So, which is pretty neat. There are a lot of guys that were aces in conventional aircraft and jet aircraft. So,
he was able to make the transition.
Yeah.
We are working on for those that are curious, we are kind of working on a project involving the Korean War here at Redoubt Productions. A couple weeks ago, I did a live stream, a Rumble exclusive live stream. So you can't see this on YouTube. You got to go over to Rumble to watch it, where we talked about North Korean museums. I get a virtual tour of North Korean museums and their interpretation of the Korean War.
So how did the museums rank?
The Fatherland's Liberation War Museum was kind of, I don't want to say this. It was this is very fanciful, but I'd go see it.
Yeah,
it's one of them. I'd still go see it. It looks pretty cool. It's I want to. I'm not going to agree with the information, but I'll just smile. I'll be quiet.
Smiling on.
Yeah, Yes, you're very proud of that very heavily damaged American bomber over there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We got 15 million of them over here.
When you treat a Sherman tank like it's a tiger.
But then you also have to deal with the fact that the North Koreans have a museum that's completely devoted to a very particular massacre.
Yes, which has some weird stuff going on with it.
Yeah, and it's one of them, I'm not going to deny that the massacre did not occur.
But there's not a lot of good evidence as to what actually happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's safe to say that the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea probably don't know.
That's probably
considering they have very limited access to information.
Yeah. Yeah, because it sounds like basically everybody and their mother went through that town, but also nobody was seen to take responsibility for it.
Yes.
So, yeah, who knows?
Yes. Yeah. It was rough.
Yeah.
Albert Ireland has his
own
own
wiki
wiki
page.
page.
I gotta look that
You
up.
can look that up. I am going to depart into the TARDIS over there. I'm going to do some time traveling. I'm going to be right back.
All right, I'm going to look up the Wikipedia page for Albert Ireland because now I'm curious.
Keep them entertained.
I will try my best. Hello. I don't live stream very often. All right, I see him here. Oh, his Wikipedia page actually has a picture as well. So Albert Ireland was a U.S. Marine Corps staff sergeant serving both World War II and the Korean War, earning the Purple Heart Medal 9 times, the most of any U.S. Marine in history. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Albert Luke Ireland. Born in New York, passed away in Kansas in 1997. Apparently served in the Royal Canadian Air Force briefly as well, which is pretty interesting. So Ireland was born and lived in New York, served briefly in the Royal Canadian Air Force, joined the Marine Corps in 1941 following the attack on Pearl Harbor, serving the Pacific during World War II. He took part in the battles of Guadalcanal and Okinawa, earning 5 Purple Hearts before the surrender of Japan. So 4 of his Purple Hearts are in Korea, 5 are in World War II. That's a lot. Concluded his military service in 1953, worked as a teacher in New York City post-war, and apparently rescued a student from a mugging in 1979, which he was born in 1918, so he would have been 61 at that point, which is pretty impressive. And later on, lived in Kansas, passed away in 1997. That's quite an impressive record for sure. His military awards are listed here. He has the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, American Defense Service Medal, American Campaign Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Korean Service Medal, and the United Nations Korea Medal. Very highly decorated. That's very cool. Yeah, service in the Royal Canadian Air Force is interesting. So because the U.S. hadn't entered World War II yet, he wanted to become a fighter pilot. Apparently had a sinus problem, which prevented him from becoming a fighter pilot, and ended up leaving Canada in November of 1941, briefly before the start of the entry of the U.S. into World War II. Apparently Putnam County named a patrol boat after him. That's pretty cool. So awarded the Purple Heart 9 times.
Wow.
The most of any U.S. Marine in history. That's pretty cool. Also, he saved somebody from a mugging when he was 61 in New York. Yeah, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. That was very interesting.
Long live Mr. Ireland.
Well, he passed away in 97. So
long live his spirit.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed. All right.
Actually, passed away November 16th, so 5 days from now.
There's a lot of coincidences with this weekend's trip.
Yeah, well, we were talking a little bit about that earlier, too, is that Gettysburg is fascinating because it's such a well-documented battle. For those of you who've seen my channel, most of the time, if I'm doing research on something that happened on the Eastern Front, I can kind of point to an area and be like, yeah, somewhere around here this thing happened. But at Gettysburg, it's like, I could tell you exactly where so-and-so was standing in a lot of cases.
Oh, yes.
And even if I can't point to the exact spot, I can be like, yeah, his regiment was here, and he wrote this. And there's all kinds of weird coincidences. There's a lot of people that are from Gettysburg that end up fighting here during the battle. There's a lot of all kinds of just strange stuff. And Riyadh and I were talking about that earlier, is that, are there this many coincidences at every major battle, like throughout history? Or is it just the fact that Gettysburg is so well documented that we actually know all of them? And I think we determined that probably these kind of like weird coincidences happen all the time. It's just because Gettysburg is so well documented, you just get all of them kind of converging here.
Yeah, the Gettysburg, not only is it seen as the turning point of the American Civil War, and I've always said the turning point of the American Civil War actually has 2 driving factors, and that's Gettysburg and that is Vicksburg. Both are needed to get the outcome that you have historically. One is not more important than the other. The reason I visit Gettysburg is because, well, it's very close. It's a day drive for me. I if I really wanted to, I can make a day trip out here if I really wanted to push it.
What?
But also, it also means for most, we have to remember the United States in the 1860s is most heavily populated on the East Coast still. Yes, there are cities all the way to the Mississippi River and beyond that, but it's much more sparse once you get into places like Ohio and go into Indiana and Illinois and such. So when we get to the veteran reunions, a lot of these reunions are converging at Gettysburg because it's the best middle ground between people coming down from New York, people coming over from Pittsburgh, people coming from Philadelphia, people coming up from DC, up from Richmond. It is a perfect converging point. Everybody can say, we'll meet you at Gettysburg.
Yeah.
So you'll have a lot of veteran reunions occur at this particular battlefield, and they're going to have their monuments put here. If they served in the Eastern Theater during the American Civil War, they're going to have their monument put at Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Even if their service wasn't necessarily the most important at Gettysburg, it's going to be at Gettysburg. This is the most heavily monumentized battlefield in the United States of America. It's also sometimes considered the largest collection of outdoor artwork in the country as a result.
That's cool.
Yeah, because there's over 1,000 pieces of art, when you think about artwork of different monuments.
And every monument's unique. Like every monument has something interesting that it does that's a little different than everybody else's. Like there's just so much cool stuff here. You need at least a few days to tour the Gettysburg battlefield. Yeah. But I mean, we've been coming here how many times now over the past 2 years have we been here?
Oh God, us together.
Two. At least 4 or 5 that I can think of.
I think this is the fourth time. And
yeah.
I mean, we're talking like the past 2 years.
Yep. No, and it's like every time we come here, it's like we see new stuff. Or I see new stuff. Like I see stuff I've never heard of or thought of. I mean, it was kind of interesting being here doing like the 1922 stuff today, is because like we basically wandered around fields most of the afternoon because a lot of the stuff isn't here anymore.
Yeah. The 1922 stuff, for the record.
Yeah, the 1922 stuff. But it was like seeing parts of the battlefield in a way that you've never seen them before, which is really cool. So I'm going to go get another beer.
He is going to go get another beer. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be here. It's going to be like normal Uncut History by myself. Just imagine that my cats are back there trying to knock some type of stuff down. Just imagine that the don't give up the ship flag is back there. It's just like an actual stream. Oh, no, he's back. Okay, back. He's breaking the illusion that this was a normal Uncut History. Okay. Gonna pop that open.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
We're back.
So before we finish up tonight, I do want to mention, and the reason we actually even decided to go live doing this discussion, because we did have a point. We may be tipsy, but we do have a point.
Yep.
Is that I heard before we left our presentation that people were saying, oh, that was a great presentation that we had at the Adams County Historical Society. But, the draw would have been free-fold if it was American Civil War or if it was even World War II. Why is the First World War so heavily neglected in modern interpretation of American history? This is your field.
Yeah, so there's a few reasons I could think of for this. One is that U.S. involvement in World War I was not nearly at the level that it was for the Civil War or World War II, right? The American Expeditionary Force is relatively small compared to both those conflicts. But also, people came back and we were only involved really for a year, roughly. We entered the war in 1917. The war ended in November of 1918, but it took some time to get our troops organized and actually sent overseas. So you don't have nearly as long of fighting that you do in the Civil War, World War II. The other big thing is that, after World War I, the U.S. entered this big boom era. We had the 1920s. A lot of people were doing well. And so there didn't seem to be as much draw to like reflecting on World War I, right? It was a small part of our experience. We're living the good life now. No need to worry about it. And then we have the Depression. The Depression happens. And all of a sudden it's like, well, now we got all this crap we got to deal with. Let's not worry about World War I. And then World War II happens. And World War II basically overshadows everything else, And so a lot of times the World War I generation gets referred to as the forgotten generation because World War II is the greatest generation. And World War II would see millions of Americans in uniform. It would see us fighting all over the world. And, at the end of World War II, the United States would emerge as the global superpower, And World War I, we came out of World War I and we're like, wow, that was a crazy European road trip we just took. Let's go buy a car. Like, yeah, that's like kind of how we came out of World War I. So there was a large amount of soldiers from World War I that wrote their memoirs post-war in the 20s and even into the 30s. But really, by the time World War II rolls around, most of those are kind of like forgotten. A lot of them, even if you find them today at different antique stores or thrift stores or wherever, they tend to have very low print numbers, didn't sell very well, per my understanding. You have the occasional like weird hits, like All Quiet on the Western Front, of course, was very popular.
1917.
Yep.
All Quiet on the Western Front again.
Yep. I know that Ernst Junger's Storm of Steel was very popular in Germany, but Ernst's view on World War I is very different than most people that fought in World War I. Yeah. If you've never read it, it's a interesting experience. But yes, there's just a lot of reasons. I think with our generation in particular, right, is I grew up on World War II movies. Not only did I grow up on World War II movies, but I grew up on Call of Duty, Medal of Honor. Like, World War II became like a pop culture thing in the United States because look at us. We're fighting objectively evil people all over the world and we're winning because we're the best. And so it's just become a very popular thing in U.S. culture. And World War I gets very murky as far as like, this war happened because some guy got shot in Sarajevo and there was this weird network of alliances. And now for some reason, all these European countries are fighting each other. And it's very hard to draw a clear, like, good guy versus bad guy in World War I. It's more all of the monarchies made these decisions and now we're all suffering for it.
It will say, it shows the big separation that North America at the time had from European affairs, that we had become so distant and we were left to our own devices for so many years. Like from the American Revolution, you have the War of 1812. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of times where the United States of America has contact with Europe. In isolated controversies and conflicts. But after the American Revolution, the United States was kind of left to its own devices all the way through the First World War. The First World War was the first time the United States was thrusted back into dealing with where they had come from Britain and from France. And when you go to Europe, the First World War is equally as important as the Second World War.
Yeah, I mean, World War I traumatized Europe.
Yeah, it was arguably, if not more traumatic than what this. I don't want to even say that. But the First World War, I'm trying to say is, because I don't want to say one's more important than the other. But
I think what you're trying to say is World War I is the trauma to Europe that the Civil War was here. Is that kind of what you're kind of getting?
Kind of, because I'm like, what happens in the First World War is going to directly set up what happens in the Second World War. The First World War did not resolve anything. It set everything up for what was going to happen the rest of the century. I think people tend to write off the First World War, at least here in the United States, because, we were involved in it 1 year. It wasn't really that important. Like, this is going to come back to bite us in 20 years. You want to know why Italy and Germany are all going to fall to fascism, totalitarian dictatorships? This is why. This is why it was made susceptible in these parts of Europe, because of how devastated they were as a consequence of this, quite honestly, pretty ridiculous reason to go to war. We're going to war. We're going to attack the enemy of my enemy, which is my friend, which is my enemy, which is my enemy. And it's just like what?
Yeah, and this is like, there were so many warning signs that World War I was going to be different than other conflicts. Because here's the thing. The American Civil War was on such a scale that Europe should have taken more notice than they did. They didn't. There were military attaches here in the United States on both sides from Europe that were observing the situation. You had the Crimean War, which showed that trench warfare was going to be a big thing moving forward. And nobody seemed to care.
No.
Yeah.
You had the American Civil War.
Yeah,
with trench warfare full scale,
again.
The largest it had ever been in the 19th century. Grant, Lee, in trenches 30 miles long, 10 months around Richmond and Petersburg.
Yeah.
Nobody learns their lesson.
No. And you have the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, which shows that, hey, these machine guns against close ranks of soldiers, pretty damn effective. And and then World War I just hits, and nobody seems to understand how to use this new equipment, and it drags into this quagmire. Because what happens is when you reach a certain level of technological equalcy between two sides, you devolve into like this grind fest, basically. And that's what the Western Front was during World War One. Is everybody got ground down in the mud because they had to survive. And then once everybody was dug in, nobody could get the other side out. And you see that throughout military history is when two sides are technologically equal, it just kind of ends up in stalemate for years.
Also, you two need to do a reaction video to Sabaton's cover of Motorhead's 1916. First time I saw that video, my eyes watered up big time.
Ooh, I don't think I've seen that.
You did not. I mean, I've listened to Sabaton. But we'll have to put that on the radar. I'd love just to make a video talking about Sabaton. I don't know how I'd do that with copyright, but
find a way.
Find a way. Life finds a way.
Life finds a way, exactly.
Life finds a way.
I feel like we lost track of the original topic.
War bad.
Yeah, we war bad. That's really
bad.
Yeah.
Don't do war.
Yeah.
Please don't do war.
Yeah, don't do war for those of you who have say in those decisions. Yeah.
Those people aren't watching.
No, those people are not watching, especially right now.
They're watching educational content? No. Is this really educational?
I think it is. I feel educated. This is very educational.
Yeah,
exactly, yes.
We've reached the end of tape, I think.
Yeah, no, I think we've hit the topics.
The tape is spinning, and it's just like,
Trying to think of other things to say.
Where do we go from here? I don't think there is much more to say. We'll go through the comments briefly. Tim was talking a lot. He really enjoys the movie Go for Broke and Gung Ho. Those are older.
I was supposed to say, I don't think I've seen either of those.
I must be honest, for us, me and Connor, it's a little rough for us to watch like World War II movies that predate like 1970.
Yeah, it's hard because you go back and you watch these World War II movies from the 50s and 60s, and all of the German tanks are like Chaffies and Pattons, and they're just painted gray. And I understand they had the tanks that nobody really knew, and but yeah, it's hard with the material culture for us, especially for me being like a collector and somebody that like focuses very hard on the material culture. Watching a World War II movie where everything is just wrong, like the history might be good, the acting might be good, but if the material culture is off. One thing that always surprised me: people give Kelly's Heroes crap for the Tigers. I think the Tigers look fine. They're not accurate, sure, but like
basically what they take like
it was T-34s they like threw some plywood on. Look, it's not great, but at least it looks like a Tiger compared to the M24 Chaffee that's been painted gray and has a.
Or you can join you can join the cult of Fury.
Here's the thing: a controversial hot take. I didn't like Fury. It's one of the few World War II movies I've seen actually.
But you're gonna like it. It's the first movie to use a real tiger in it.
I don't care. Like here's my thing with Fury. I felt like it was very edgy for one, which felt weird for a military movie. But also that entire final battle made absolutely no sense. Okay, so we're gonna park the tank in the middle of the road. And these supposedly elite SS veterans that are coming down this road are just going to Zerg rush at us like they're zombies, and we're just going to mow all of them down. Like there was the SS didn't scatter. They didn't try to flank the tank. They didn't call for artillery. They had Panzerfaust. I mean, the Panzerfaust was the cheapest anti-tank weapon the Germans had. They made millions of them. You're telling me that there weren't enough Panzerfaust in this unit to knock out the Sherman? Yeah, no. Yeah, there's just a lot about that movie that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
Yeah.
I get why people like it.
Oh, for sure.
The action's great in it. It's cool to watch. It's a visual feast. But
oh yeah, Go for Broke's about the Japanese Americans. I've heard of it. I have not seen it. Kelly's Heroes is still my favorite World War II movie. Is it the best movie ever made? No.
Well,
is it?
Maybe.
I've seen better movies than Kelly's Heroes.
I put it in the intro.
Yeah, but it is my favorite movie because Oddballs are great. All the characters are great. Oddball's great. Everybody else is great. What's the name of the Tiger Commander? Can't remember.
Did he have a name?
I don't know if he had a name, but he's in like every World War II movie of that era. If they have some kind of German character, he's in the movie somewhere.
$16 million of gold in that bank over here. F the Fuhrer. I'm blowing that bank up and I'm taking some of that.
Fair enough, honestly.
Capitalism wins.
Yeah. Oh, man, who's the general from that movie?
Oh,
Booker, get me my uniform.
Well, he plays Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
I think his name's Carol Burnett. No. Carol, is it like Carol O'Connor? I want to say that's
I don't know.
I think it's Carol O'Connor. I know it's Archie Bunker.
Yeah, him riding into Nancy. They think you're De Gaulle, sir.
What?
De Gaulle, he ain't even in this war. Oh man, there's so many good quotable lines for that movie.
Accurate depiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gung Ho was a marine picture of one of the first battles of the island hopping campaign. That sounds interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I liked I saw the oh gosh, I'm blanking. The Alamo of the Pacific. Wake Island. I saw the Wake Island movie that was made during the war.
We're talking about the movie that was made as the people that were at Wake Island were prisoners of the Japanese in real life.
Yes.
At the time the movie's being made.
Yeah, that's one of the weird things with Wake Island. Is at the end of the movie ends with John Wayne and one other guy going out in a blaze of grenades, machine gunning Japanese soldiers. In reality, the commander of the garrison at Wake Island, after holding out far longer than he had any right to, was like, hey, we have all these civilian contractors here, and if we keep fighting the Japanese, they're going to kill all of them, so we're going to surrender. Perfectly reasonable. But apparently Hollywood didn't like that, so they made their own ending to Wake Island.
And now, like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yep. Bolivian Army ending.
They really did got the blood.
Yeah,
which is not what really happened. And imagine if you will, you come back from your service. It's early 1946 now.
Yeah.
And you said, oh, they made a movie about Wake Island. It's playing theaters. And you watch it.
Yeah, no, I saw there was a documentary I saw that actually had a guy that was at Wake Island talking about that. Like, yeah, the ending was a little different.
A little bit.
A little different.
I lived. Just feel like I survived.
Yeah,
barely, but I did.
Those wartime propaganda films are kind of hit or miss. Some of them are really good. Some of them aren't. I loved Sahara. I don't know if you ever seen Sahara.
No, I'm not.
It has Humphrey Bogart, and he's the commander.
I've heard of it.
He's a commander of an.
Now that you mention it,
he's a commander of an M3.
Yep.
Is it a Lee or a Grant tank that the U.S. used? I can't remember. It's the same tank, but different designations. If it was British, whatever.
I would assume Grant.
Yeah, M3 Grant.
I'm probably.
But basically, they get separated from their unit after this big battle, and they're kind of like just vibing through the North African desert. They pick up all these British soldiers on the way, and they end up at this oasis. And these 300 Afrika Korps soldiers show up and essentially besiege them because they need the water. They're all lost out here in the desert with no water for like 100 miles in any direction. And it's really good. It features probably one of the coolest scenes that I've seen in a World War II movie, which is a British colonial soldier beating a Luftwaffe pilot to death with his bare hands after the Luftwaffe pilot made several racist comments and stabbed an Italian POW while escaping. Yeah, it goes hard.
We need to watch the Big Red One with Lee Marvin and Mark Hamill.
I've seen the Big Red One. I watched it on Military Channel back in the day when we had Military Channel.
Remember Military Channel?
Oh, I remember Military Channel.
And now it's the American Heroes Channel.
Gosh, I miss Military Channel. There's a lot of cool programs on there. Greatest Tank Battles, love that show. There are so many other good ones. I mean, World War II in color I've seen so many times. Could probably quote it in my sleep.
Not to be confused with World War II and HD.
Yeah, very different things. And then you got Apocalypse World War II, Apocalypse World War I. It's a lot of documentaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what can we expect from you in the near future, Humble Collector?
Oh gosh,
near
future
your channel.
So, more death cards as always. I have
more death.
I have too many death cards.
More death.
More death cards. I got a few more unboxings I filmed a while ago that I still need to edit. I want to start working on some not death card related stuff, but I just haven't had the time to really do any proper research. I have a few topics I kind of want to cover. Yeah, I mean, the big thing is The YouTube algorithm gods blessed my channel recently. And my last Death Card video got like 1,500 views, which is unusual because most of them get a couple hundred. And I got a bunch of subscribers. We're at 914 last I checked. So we're getting close to that 1,000 subscriber special, which I've already started working on. I have the script or my rough notes planned out. I still need to actually.
It's gonna be a fun one.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose all my subscribers.
You might gain a few new ones.
I might. There might be a few. Yeah, for those of you, for the real OGs that have been around since the first John Brown Isekai stream or recording, like what, a year and a half ago now, probably. Yeah. I made a comment about what the 1,000 subscriber special is going to be. I'm a man of my word. Even if I gave that word, well,
so for those that are watching a stream or watching a recap, you know what that means. First, you got to go find the John Brown Isekai, which is here on Readout Productions.
That's great.
We are reading the Cabbage Preacher's magnificent opus.
It's great. Unironically, it's great.
About when John Brown, after he was hung in Charlestown, Virginia, now West Virginia, got isekai to your stereotypical fantasy world and teams up with the cat girl Ayamighty, and they tear apart slavery in this fantasy world, and it is beautiful. And me, humble collector, and what do we call her? She was just for real for a while.
I have no idea what the handle is.
She's Jess. We all teamed up and we read it. And it's fantastic. And you should go read the John Brown Isekai and listen to our dramatic reading, which is here on the channel. And if you listen to the first 2 parts, you can listen to what Humble Collector planned to do for his 1,000 subscriber special. And then once you hear all that, you might as well go and subscribe to Humble Collector. I just dropped the link. So actually, you could do that before listening to the John Brown Isekai. You can literally put the John Brown Isekai on, listen to it as you're going to a Humble Collector's YouTube channel to subscribe to it.
That's really productive.
It really is.
You're multitasking.
I am encouraging multitasking amongst our viewers here.
Yeah, so if you like World War I, World War II, most of my videos focus on casualty records from World War II, so we're going to talk a lot about the Eastern Front. You're going to hear me butcher a lot of Soviet place names. It's going to be great.
It's great. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah. And what's coming down to the pipeline for Readout Productions? Well, we mentioned that we're out here recording an episode of Retracing History about the 1922 United States Marine Corps maneuvers at Gettysburg. I'm going to have to find a way to make that very digestible for a title. That's going to be an uphill battle. Things are going to be irregular just for a few more weeks. I think around December, you can expect things to come back to normal. You can start expecting more regular updates from me. Once we get through Turkey Day, you can expect more regular videos from Readout Productions. We tend to focus on 18th and 19th century American military history, but I also touch base with a lot of southwestern Pennsylvania history because that's my neck of the woods. So I go out and explore my local history in southwestern Pennsylvania, and then I do videos on 19th and 18th century American military history. So if that interests you, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And yes, I'm hoping one day we will be able to take the channel on the road quite frequently, me and a humble collector, and we'll be able to see a wide variety of historical sites. It'd be nice to go see places. It'd be nice to actually go see more than just Gettysburg. It'd be nice to return to Antietam. It'd be nice to go to Fredericksburg. It'd be nice to go down to Richmond. It'd be nice to go see where the war started. The American Civil War started at Fort Sumter. It would be nice to dip into some American Revolution history. We go see Kings Mountain, Cowpens, go see Guilford Courthouse, see where the American Revolution ends at Yorktown, see where the American Revolution starts up in Lexington and Concord. Do some French-Canadian War history. We can talk about Lake George. We can talk about Fort Ticonderoga. Yep, we're rolling out right now. Yeah, I'm just going to be talking about all the potential places we can go. I guess there's no way we can change his head. I guess you're just going to have this awkward thing. I guess you move your head over to the right. Yeah. This is what we're doing now.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Au revoir. Au revoir. Au revoir. All right. This is a stream. We're going to go off and explore some more history. It's going to be great. It is great. I'm wondering if the music's even good. That'd be great.
If we're just talking over this extra,
Which would be very fun. Which would be funny. You know what? I probably should just end the stream. I should probably just end the stream. Thank you, Superman Blue, and thank you, Marty Chan. Cards, hopefully it's a stream. Yeah, we're going to end this here. All right, hip, off to the battlefield.